Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Welcome back to the show. This is Jake and Corey, and episode 267 of Upticks. Corey, welcome back to the show.
Jake, thank you.
And, before we dive into today's headlines, I always like to talk about something personal that's been going on. So, Corey, I'll let you go first. What's new?
Some racket sports. In the last week, we Falcon Wealth Advisors hosted our pickleball social, which was a blast last week at the Carriage Club. Great turnout, very competitive pickleball play, a lot of fun, but played a lot of racquetball. And then on Saturday, I played in a platform tennis tournament. It's called Hit for Haiti, that raises money for a surgery center that a local doctor has opened down in Haiti. And my partner and I won the championship. We went undefeated, 9-0, which is very exciting.
Good for you, Corey. Yeah, the pickleball, this was probably this is our fourth annual Falcon Wealth Advisors pickleball social. So it's welcome to both clients and their friends and family. We had probably over 100 people there. We had a band, we had food and drink, and we had new winners. Our previous champions were double booked, and so unfortunately they weren't there to defend their title. But to be fair, they had won 3 years in a row. We had a great showing. Like you said, it was pretty competitive, and so it'll be exciting to see as our social continues to grow. The level of pickleball has grown also, so that was fun. And, me, I'm winding down golf. I'm about done with golf for the year. I've played a lot this year. I'm playing really well. And so I'm excited to wrap that up and get into fall and spend more time with Rachel and Einstein. I'm reading a really good book right now called, what is it called? Unreasonable Hospitality, Corey. I do recommend it. I'm not done with it. I'm probably about halfway through with it. But it's basically about this guy that owns a restaurant or ran a restaurant. And he's friends with Danny Meyer, St. Louis guy. And he is talking about how to really treat customers. And I've found a lot of useful tips that I'm going to look to deploy at Falcon Wealth Advisors and the way that we interact with our clients. So I'm real excited to share that with our team. And I'm real excited for all of you out there to be joining us. Corey, our subscriber count is quickly growing. Probably by the time that this is out, we'll be at over 500 subscribers on YouTube. Our podcast downloads continue to improve. And so I'm very humbled by that. And we're very excited because the purpose of this show of Upticks is to enhance financial literacy at scale. And, you and I talking for 30 minutes about headlines and news and markets, I think is a great way to educate the general public out there. So again, we're real excited. A quick side note, again, please subscribe, share, like our content, leave comments, reviews. Quick side note though, again, it's important. Don't take our show as advice. This is only to spark a conversation. If you really want to get into the weeds of your financial plan, the best way you can do that is schedule time with myself, Corey, or certainly one of our financial planners. Our planners take the majority of our client meetings now so that Corey and I can spend time on complex client issues and researching the latest trends in financial planning and investments. All right, Corey, so with that, you have anything else before I kick us off here?
Kick us off.
All right, my first headline here is the right amount of cash to keep at home for emergencies. Hint, it's not $480,000. Corey, did you know that Bob Menendez, they caught him with $480,000 in cash at home? Do you know that story? Crazy. He said it was for quote unquote emergencies. So anyways.
Senator,
Yeah, and I'm talking cash money here. I'm not talking about in your checking account or saving. I'm talking about literally in cash.
Cold hard cash.
The article said, they surveyed, I guess, some advisors or a dozen advisors, and they said the range was anywhere from a couple $100 to 2 weeks worth of expenses. And I guess the point that they're recommending this is that if you have some huge natural disaster and the financial institutions are not open or available, that cash may be king. But I'm curious, Corey, first, before kind of your general statement on this. Do you keep cash at home, and how much do you normally keep if you do?
Yes, I do. And I keep between $500 to $1,000.
And why do you do that? Are you worried about tornadoes or?
It is, it's sleep well at night. You know, it is oftentimes it's convenience because it's there. So if I need cash, it doesn't require me to run to the ATM, but I will replace it. So that's part of it. And the other element of it is just that it's making sure that it's there, that I have it to spend if I need to. It's not going to be enough money to change anything drastically, of course, but it's there.
Right. And I would say I didn't do this. I went on a golf trip and somebody paid me back like in cash, like a lot of money in cash, a lot for me. It was like over $1,000 or something, and instead of like writing me a check or whatever. So I just kept it in cash rather than taking it to the bank. And Rachel and I have used it as exactly what you said. If I'm going somewhere and I need cash, if we're traveling and we need cash, or to tip people, right? So if somebody's bringing something over and we want to tip people with cash. So it's been good. I've dipped into it a little bit, so I might replenish it. But, you know, again, the point of the article was saying that exactly like you said, you don't want to keep too much around where you're posing a risk. They also suggested that you certainly keep it in a safe place where it's dry and it can't be found. And, you know, again, I'm not overly worried about it. They also mentioned, Corey, that if we do have a natural disaster, that people that pay in cash might not necessarily have favor over people that can't. So that's not a reason to do it. But again, I don't think it's the worst idea. You got to be careful though, because it's very risky, because if you lose that money, it gets lost or stolen, it's gone, right? There's no really protection there. So I certainly wouldn't want somebody to keep $480,000 in cash for emergencies. I think that was a little bit crazy. And I doubt it was for emergencies, but anyways. All right, Corey, what's our next one?
That's a lot. The next, most Americans aren't ready for retirement, and here's how to prepare according to a researcher. So this came from Barron's, and the expert worked for an asset management firm, and they really just talked through retirement trends with him and what are the ways that Americans can prepare better for retirement. And there was a few great takeaways. One of them was markets go up and down, and you should expect that. So if you're going into retirement, if you're not quite at retirement, you should expect that the markets will go up and down and be prepared for that.
Let's take a quick time out there, because I'm glad you brought this up, because before we started recording today, I told you I wanted to talk about that and I completely forgot. So thank you. So you're right, Corey. You know, in August and September, the markets pulled back, generally speaking. And I've had a couple of clients already ping me, Corey, saying, hey, I'm worried, I'm nervous. And I get it. Especially if you're retired. You hate to open up your statement, Corey, and see your account go down. But and I'll use your word, what befuddles me is that these clients don't call me or email me when the account is going up. And so what I try to do, Corey, is to remind clients just what that point said here, that markets go up and down. Now, I get it. It's human nature. You never want to see your net worth diminish. However, if you're going to be invested in anything, I don't care what it is, if you're going to be invested, you can expect that investment price to change. And it doesn't mean it just goes up. And anyone that tells you something just goes up is probably lying to you or selling you something shady. So again, it's okay in retirement for your account to go down 2 months. I had to remind these clients that if you zoom out and you look at your investing time horizon, you have made way more money than you've lost. And so perspective is very important. I get it. People get nervous. This is a retirement. I don't like seeing anybody's account down, but I also know that that's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen again and again and again. And the goal of investing is that we invest in companies that ideally will go up more than they go down, and that you're diversified and protected as much as you can be. But there's always going to be risk, right? Just like there's risk if you leave cash in a shoebox at your house, there's still risk there. So, all right, Corey, I had to go off on that because I think it's important, and I'm not faulting these clients at all. Don't get me wrong. It baffles me that clients forget that, and that's just human nature. And I guess that's part of my job security, is to remind people of that. But you have to understand it's going to go up and down. Go ahead, Corey, with your topic.
Yeah, that was one of the big points. I just thought that was interesting because they talked about Americans not being ready for retirement. And the first point this researcher made was that markets go up and down, and you should expect that. Secondly, he highlighted, understand what you own, including bonds. And I think this was a great point because he really highlighted that stocks are stories, right? It's about a company that did something, it made something, it was successful. People understand that. But the bond market is driven by math. And for most people, math can be much more difficult. It's just not as natural or intuitive. So understanding what you own and understanding what it's intended to do. But the last point that I wanted to make here, Jake, was how the author highlighted how different this looks generationally. And the big point there is that there's some interesting trends that baby boomers are overconfident and underfunded. And the median retirement need is a much larger number than what people expect. The savings is not aligned with what that need looks like, but ultimately that a lot of people aren't secure in their retirement. They don't feel secure planning for their retirement, but they don't adjust or modify their behavior as a result of that.
Of course not. They want their cake and they want to eat it too. And so that's good. I think discipline is a big part of retirement and understanding that, if you want to spend a lot, you've got to have a lot. And that's what we've talked about on this show so many times, which is great. And I never get tired of talking about this, Corey, is lining up your money with your purpose or your values and be very cheap and tight on things that you don't value and spend more than the average on things that you do value. And I think if you can do that with a proper financial plan and tax planning and investment management, then you can set yourself up, but you can't have it all. Nobody can. I like that. Good one, Corey.
Thank you.
All right. On to the next one here. I've got one here for you. The smallest $1 billion Powerball jackpot ever. This was in my Wall Street Journal, and it's a pretty funny article. It said, winning $1 billion, Corey, has never been such a letdown. And what they're getting at here is that so when you win and hopefully someone's watching this, maybe they've won the Powerball, Corey, but when you win the Powerball, you typically have an option where you can take a lump sum or you can get a annuity payment for 30 years or something. And what the argument is that now that interest rates are much higher than they've been, that the lump sum number that they give you, and this is all before taxes, is a lot lower than it was before. And that makes sense because theoretically you could go buy a treasury bill paying 4 or 5%, and do okay with that. Whereas before they would have to do the calculations based on 1% or 2%. So of course the lump sum payout is going to be less. But anyways, so it says the lottery people didn't buy shrink ray or anything. That winners have the two choices of taking the payout. And, the argument was, though, that you still might consider the lump sum because tax rates are set to go up. So a lot of people that win the lottery still take the lump sum because they're concerned that their tax rates may go up because of laws changing. So anyways, I thought it was a fun article to read because it certainly got my attention, because the gist of it, though, is who cares if you won $1 billion and you got 500 million in cash versus 550 million? Would you really care? Probably not.
No.
Would you take the lump sum or the annuity, though, Corey?
Lump sum.
Yeah, we're finance guys. I mean, the annuity's cool and all. I guess you get, some of it was like you get 19 million a year for 30 years. But my argument is typically that I could leverage that money. I could invest it. I could borrow against it. There's all kinds of things you can do with that lump sum. But that doesn't necessarily mean, again, the sound advice. That might not be the best for everybody, especially if you have a discipline issue. If you have a discipline problem, then you might want to take that annuity.
Right. I just think my annuity is someone else's lump sum.
That's right.
Think about it that way. So
that's right.
But you're right. You bring up good points. But I won't be let down. I guess I got to play to win, and I don't really play, but I'm sure whoever else is out there is playing. If they win, they're probably not going to be let down.
Yeah, I love it. It's sadly, this is a harsh comment, but a lot of people say the lottery is a tax on the poor. I think more people in lower income brackets play the lottery. But it is, as long as it's not hurting your financial plan and you get some excitement and enjoyment out of it, I don't think it's the worst thing. But you got to be careful. I mean, if you're spending thousands of dollars a year playing the lottery, you got to think about what are you really doing here? So, all right, good. What's our next topic?
Americans are still spending like there's no tomorrow. This came from the Wall Street Journal, and they highlighted that consumers should be spending less by now. Interest rates are up, inflation remains high, pandemic savings have shrunk, and the labor market is cooling. Yet household spending, which is the primary driver of the nation's economic growth, remains robust. Americans spent 5.8% more in August of 2023 than a year earlier, which outstrips the 4% inflation. The point being that consumers are spending more money. What I thought was interesting about this is the reasoning behind that. What's the rationale for that? Because I think this all makes sense intuitively. But what they pointed out was that a big part of it is that people who have been saving for houses have given up because home prices and mortgage rates have moved so much higher that people are choosing to just spend that money elsewhere. The pandemic showed the instability of long-term plans related to health, work, or the day-to-day life. So people are spending more on experiences because they worry that they're not going to be able to do them later. And along that, I just wanted to share, Jake, there was a note in here that I do not recommend and do not suggest, but I thought it was interesting that this was a quote that was out there in the Wall Street Journal. And this couple said that they went into credit card debt to finance a vacation this past spring. They booked the trip only a few weeks after one of them quit their job to be a full-time caregiver to their child. And they said, we do not have the money, but we figured let's just do this anyway.
Yeah,
I was surprised to read that.
You were?
I was surprised that someone put that in writing. Let me put it that way.
They clearly don't care. They clearly don't
don't
care. And the Wall Street Journal, I think they could dig up people from all over to get these quotes.
They do. But what do you think about that?
I find it interesting that people have stopped saving for housing because prices are up and interest rates are high. So I can kind of get behind that why they're spending more. You know, it's a little bit of irrational exuberance. And I think it's, you know, they got to be careful because if unemployment starts to get worse and more people lose their jobs, they could stand to be very far behind when it comes to retirement savings, or they could be racking up crazy amount of credit card debt that will be very difficult to pay off. And so it's sad that people are out spending. I don't mind it spending for experiences in lieu of saving for a home. If maybe you're happy in your house and you're like, you know what? You said this to me before, that, you know, you and Cassie are happy in your house and you're not really concerned about upgrading anytime soon. And so you probably do spend a little bit more on vacations, I would argue, than somebody who is trying to save up for a much larger house or whatever, right? So I'm okay with that, you know, in that situation. I'm not okay with somebody racking up credit card debt and just throwing caution to the wind because, again, we've seen it, Corey. Like, we're very fortunate that our clients aren't typically in this situation, but I've met with people that have come in and they don't have anything safe for retirement. And they're like, what do you mean I can't retire? I'm like, you don't have enough money. You can't retire. You have to keep working. And so I hate to see that. And that's what happened. So it'd be interesting to see if this is just where we are in the cycle, or if this is a true generational habit that is forming, and it'll make our jobs a little bit more difficult. So it'll be interesting to see. That was a good article, though. I'm glad you shared it. It's crazy. I think it will slow down. I think something will happen and people will slow down. I think it cycles. I think the pendulum will shift back over. So,
all right.
Speaking of spending money, how to spend $100 on airport food without really trying. So again, they said, this article says, Corey, that nearly 80% of major airports charge above street pricing, and they call this Street Plus. And this was in a 2023 survey by a trade group, Airports Council and International North America. And at Los Angeles, the figure is Street Plus 18%. They charge almost 20% more. In Kansas City, they charge 15% more. And in New York, like LaGuardia, JFK, and Newark, they charge Street Plus 10%. So it's basically different. They're defined and monitored differently by every airport. In some airports, I think it was Utah, maybe, Corey, they don't charge any Street Plus pricing. So again, 80% of them do, though. So I guess I just wanted to discuss this more with you. I find that airports kind of take advantage of you a little bit because you're trapped there, especially if you get delayed, right? Or you have a layover, and you're going to pay whatever the price is because you're hungry or you're thirsty, and it is expensive. But do you have any tips for people that are traveling, or things that you do to kind of not get gouged? Because you can't bring water through the security line. I don't know if you could probably bring food, I guess, if it's not opened, I would think.
Yeah, if the food is sealed, you can take it. But this this is a reusable water bottle. This can go through security if it's empty, and I can fill it up just when I get into the other side, as opposed to paying $6 or $7 for a bottle of water, which is what I do when I fly.
Good for you. So you just go to the water fountain?
Yep.
Nice.
They've got the, the big dispenser. You just set the bottle right up there. It's all touchless. It'll fill it up. But it's sustainable because you're not using the plastic bottles, and two, it saves you the money.
Good for you, Corey. Yeah, that's a good tip. And I think, you just got to be smart about it and plan accordingly. If you're local, if you're leaving your hometown, maybe you eat before you go to the airport, right?
Sure.
And if you're late over, you're late over, right? You don't need to have this gourmet meal in the airport either. You don't need, I try to eat healthy. I try to find something healthy and light when I'm traveling.
As do I. I'm the same way, because I know the prices are going to be more expensive one way or the other. There's not anything I can do about that. But for me, it's more like a personal point. I'm like, I know that I'm going to pay more for this just because it's here. So therefore, I'm going to not do that or figure out what's the smallest amount of food that I need to sustain me until I can eat somewhere other than this airport.
Have you ever had and we'll move on here. Have you ever had a great meal in an airport that you was memorable?
No.
I had one, believe it or not.
Really?
I had one. I was in San Antonio coming back. I think it was this year. I played in a golf trip or whatever. We had a golf trip down there, and I was in kind of their bad part of the airport. It wasn't the nicer, newer part. And this Mexican restaurant was packed. I was crammed in this little, and I had the best tacos, Corey. They were called Tacos Norteña. And I think it had beans and probably chicken and avocado, but it just was really, really, really good. Really good. Anyways, so
probably why it was
worth
packed.
It was worth the overcharged, whatever I paid. It was worth it. So, all right, let's move it on. Let's move along here, Corey. What's next?
All right. The next one here is from the Wall Street Journal. This is shifting gears a little bit to the market specifically, but this article is that higher bond yields likely to extend the Fed rate pause. So this was just published within the last day or two, as of our recording of this episode. And the big point behind this article was that interest rates have moved higher. That's not a surprise to anyone since the beginning of 2022. But more recently, specifically in the last month or two, we've seen longer term interest rates. So bonds that mature in 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, and beyond. We've seen those interest rates move much higher in the last month or two. So this article was highlighting the fact that because that's happened, that is the market doing a lot of the Fed's work for them. And for that particular reason, they are that much less likely to continue raising rates much further from here. So I thought it was good to include, and I have a chart here from this article specifically that we can include too, that just shows how much higher the 10-year Treasury yield has moved in 2023, really within the last few months, because I just think it's important for people to understand that, because we talk about interest rates and whether the Fed raises rates, lowers rates, keeps them where they're at, but they can only control certain interest rates. They don't control the entire yield curve. So it's interesting to see this playing out this way, because it certainly reads as if it's what the Fed has wanted. But what are your thoughts, Jake?
Why did you just say that the Fed will keep raising rates because of this, or no? No, they won't have to, right? Because
Correct.
Bond rates have come up on their own. No, I think it is good. And I think to your argument last week when we recorded is saying, why does the Fed have to manipulate so much? And the good news is, I think it's starting to happen naturally. I think it's to your point of this article. So I like to see it. I like to see the 10-year yield go higher, because that also implies that the yield curve is flattening. And if you have a flat or a steep versus inverted, if you have a steep yield curve, that's a good sign for the economy. So I like it. I like it. And I like less manipulation from the Fed. I get that I still believe they have to have inflation, and sometimes they need to step in. But the fact some of this is happening organically, I'm all aboard for that. And I like to see it. So good one.
Yep.
Thanks for bringing back the charts. Speaking of charts, Corey, I got another chart for you. I'll put this one up here. This is from Yahoo Finance, and it says job switchers are losing their edge. So on this chart here, Corey, it looks like people that were jumping ship were making over 15% more when they left their jobs, versus people that stayed at their jobs were only making about 7% more. I guess this is year over year, how they get raises. But now it's almost the same. Literally, it looks like on this chart, it's probably around 9% and 6 or 7%. So I guess my point of this, the reason I thought this was interesting, because I think the grass isn't always greener. And I think as you get more uncertainty in the economy and the world and the marketplace that it's okay to just go to your boss and say, hey, is there anything more I can do to warrant getting a raise? Versus just quitting and thinking that, hey, I'm going to go make 15% more, so I'm just going to quit my job and go do something else. So again, there was a time and place for that where it was very opportunistic for do that. But I don't think that that's the situation that we're in today. So I encourage people that are still employed that, yeah, sometimes you have to make a career change, and that's certainly okay. But if you're working somewhere, the job market is still tight. So if you don't want to jump ship, it may be okay to ask for that raise, or in my opinion, to ask what more can you do to justify as a raise so that you can make more money.
That's good. I think just real quick, Jake, that in my opinion, that reinforces a belief that I have. And this is just a belief, but it is a generational belief. And it's because I very much firmly fall in the generation where people change jobs a lot and have changed jobs a lot over the last decade or so. And my theory, it's just a theory, is that a lot of people don't stay in one place long enough to let the compounding happen. And frankly, I think that that's really kind of what this highlights, is that initially people were earning a lot more money, changing jobs, jumping ship, making an adjustment, whatever it might be, but that's kind of come back down and it's normalized some. And the point there is, if you're always, like you said, the grass isn't always greener. I just feel like I agree with that. And I also think that people just need to stay in one place long enough to let the compounding happen.
Good answer, Corey. I'm glad you haven't jumped ship.
That's right.
Dave, Falcon Wealth Advisors, Corey.
No, this is it, man. There's nowhere else to go. So
that's a good answer.
Good.
I know you got more charts. We're running out of time. So I just want to, we've got 2 more headlines. So let's hear one of your charts. And let's say, if you don't mind, and then we'll go into the last topic.
Okay, good. So I included, there's 2 charts and 1 image here I just want to talk through briefly. One of them is about
I just want one chart. Just give me one.
Normalization in the S&P 500, the year-over-year percentage change in costs is included here. The point of this is just to highlight that costs for companies that are part of the market have gone up a lot, and those are starting to ease some, and that is likely to provide a tailwind. And I wanted to include this because more often than not, there's so many conversations with people about things that are wrong or what needs to change or what needs to happen. I just simply wanted to point this out to say, look, there's more to what happens in the market and a company's performance than interest rates and the decisions that the Fed makes on a month-to-month basis. And it's good to just shine a light on that and highlight it.
I like that. Yeah. So this was not a bad chart. I don't think it's predicting the future, but it is a good sign that costs, sounds like, are dropping, which should help companies' profitability. Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
All right. Good one, Corey. And then the last topic here is Autopay. Autopay is making us worse at managing credit card bills. So another personal finance one. Basically, the gist of this article, Corey, is that it's saying that people normally set up Autopay on their credit cards initially to pay off the balance in full. Not always, not everybody, but the people that do that, though, it says within 10 months, they change it because they can't keep up and they can't afford it. And then they start not paying it off and they start racking up fees and interest charges. And so some of the tips here were basically is to set up your defaults and do it, basically, let's see here. So overdraft fees can offset savings from late fees. So if you spend more on a credit card than you have in your checking account, you can avoid overdrafts by scheduling your automatic payments on days you are paid instead of using the default statement date. So again, think about it. If you get paid on the 1st and 15th, but you got to pay your credit card off on the 20th and you're running tight, you can set up your defaults so that it goes in line with your paycheck. And then I'm old school, Corey. I just write a check for it. And I think that helps me pay it off. They said that actually people that do it old school typically have a better payback schedule. But I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on Autopay on your credit card? Do you do Autopay?
No, I don't. I'm pretty old school too. It's interesting they said that. But Jake, I literally have recurring reminders in my phone for virtually every expense that I have. And it works for me. But I like having the control of going in and doing it. But I do have something right in front of me every single time when it's time to make the payment.
Yeah, and that's a good habit, Corey, because they say actively managing your account helps you stay on top of your spending and spot any fraudulent charges also. So again, the article was a good one because I just want to challenge our audience to say, hey, if you got things on Autopay, but you're not paying them off, it might make sense to cancel Autopay and start manually doing it. You might gain a little bit more control of your finances and you might save yourself some fees.
And interest.
And interest. Yeah. So great show today, Corey. Thank you again for joining me. Do you have any parting comments as we wrap up?
I don't. I'm looking forward to next week. How about that?
Yeah, that's great. Good luck in your paddle sports as you're winding into your season here. And as always, thank all of you for tuning in. Again, please like and share our content. That's the reason we're doing this. And we hope all of you have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.